Welcome to the Coffee with Kingpins. I'm very excited today as I have a guest that I'm sure you will all enjoy tremendously. Her name is Kathy Haley, and she is a Wonder Woman. She is an author, she's an herbalist, she's an Ayurvedic practitioner, and I'm sure she will share with us so much more about her other qualification. But welcome, Kathy. So nice to
Hi,
see
thank
you.
you. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I appreciate being here.
Absolutely. So, um, tell us a little bit about yourself. I hear that you're just about to publish your second book. So, just tell the audience about where you came from, how it began, and just your different pursuits.
Okay, well, thank you. So this is my author copy. So Katie Kamala Haley and Messages from the Medicine is the book, and it's a spiritual memoir about my time living in the Amazon jungle as an eco artist, and then also going to the Andes Mountains for a advanced yoga certification. So I spent 6 months on a sabbatical in Peru, and it was really life changing. I'd already been working with the medicine, particularly the ayahuasca medicine, which has become popular, maybe a little bit of controversial. So now with the book, I want to set some things straight about the medicine. I want to give people a real higher perspective on the potentiality to working with some of these plant medicines and what they're all about, and really share that journey with people to understand the plants better, but through an adventure story, which is a lot more exciting than just reading, specifics about the benefits of a plant, because you meet the plants in their native environment. And I think it's a much more exciting way to learn.
That's phenomenal. And I know your first book. Tell us a little bit about your first book. It was your travels to India and what took you there.
Yeah, that book was compiled over a 2 year journey going back and forth to India to study Ayurvedic medicine. I've been a massage therapist. I'm not practicing right now, but I practiced for 23 years, and so I was learning different, body work techniques and the whole cosmology of Ayurveda and the nutritional aspects, mostly the nutritional aspects and cooking, and as well as how to do these treatments to people and use Ayurveda as for longevity and for health. But I fell in love with India, and then I would go back periodically to get essential oils for my company. I had an aromatherapy company for 18 years until I decided it was time to move on, because unfortunately there's so many other multi-level marketing companies and Amazon and people getting their essential oils in different ways. And so it was expensive having a small business, especially because I wanted to have the highest quality. So 18 years was a good run. And then I just focused on my yoga studio and my massage practice in South Florida until the pandemic. And that was a huge shift till I came to Central Florida. And that's when I started my nonprofit food forest, because I wanted to grow all the plants myself, a lot of the medicinal plants and the culinary plants, and get to see a project on how sustainable that I could be, not just saying sustainable is a word, but actually could I really live this, and how challenging it could be. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm year 4 of my project for growing the food and medicine in my own backyard, and sharing that with other people of how to cultivate that for themselves.
That's phenomenal. Um, tell us a little bit about your childhood, because I mean, it just seems you have so many different interests.
Well, I'd have to say that I don't really think that the childhood, because I was so much different than my family. I mean, now they don't think I'm so strange, but maybe still just a little strange. But there wasn't really anything that maybe propelled me into the direction that I was going into. So that's when I think more really about past lives, because I always had a fascination with India. I always wanted to go to Peru. So some of these places I went to, I didn't seek out places that per se for vacations. I felt like a soul calling to go to these places. So I feel like really what I'm doing now is a continuation of things I've done in different past lives as far as um, working on my journey, working on myself, and doing my best to share that with other people right now that need health and healing in our society. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think the only thing, the childhood is I did grow up very religious, but I think it was very difficult to shed a lot of that programming because it is such a program. But it did give me on the good side, maybe a devotional nature, which was essential for yoga or working with the medicine. So maybe the religion did give me that, but I really moved past that and was searching for a higher truth. So nature, in nature, I found the higher truth I was seeking.
Right. Well, it's interesting because my view of that is that uh, I'm not going to give numbers, but um, I think right now and before there were, this period of what's happening on Earth, it seems that there are a lot of older souls that are being
Mm.
born. And those souls each come with certain contracts and missions. And the reason I asked about your childhood, because I feel, and maybe that's not the case for everyone, I feel there's something different, whether it has to do with our childhood, the way we grow up, the influences maybe, and maybe just what your spirit and soul pushes you towards.
Mm.
Uh, for me, I felt I didn't belong, and I was sent to boarding school at the age of 8. And I think now looking back at that, that was essential for, who I am. I'm basically very different from my siblings, um, kind of like the black sheep of the
Oh
family.
yeah, I
So
relate to that
yeah, that's
for
why
sure.
I brought that up. And the reason I was asking you, what kind of uh what pushed you towards what you're doing now is because I feel that being old souls, we come here and there seems to be certain steps and healings that we have to go through in order to embody that the genuine spirit and the wit to bring back the wisdom of that soul. So that's why I was
Mm.
asking, what interested you?
Oh yeah, no, that's a very proper perspective of that I can relate to. Um, Definitely. And I'd say when I was young, though, I just, and why I mentioned about past lives, because even being a child, like I was just ready to get on with it. Like I did never felt like a child. I felt like I was like having to just, it took forever to like grow up. Like, let's get on with this. I have places to go. I have things I need to do. So I never maybe felt exactly
Yeah, I
like the
felt the same way.
yeah, let's get on with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what um made you interested apart from the plants as far as um going on that journey of ayahuasca?
So ayahuasca, 16 years ago when I first did it, it was my yoga teacher that I had in Orlando, and she had moved to Miami and she married a shaman from South America, and she experienced the medicine, and she was bringing him to Orlando just to connect with her friends, and she wanted to share it. So I just went as a curiosity, and I had a really beautiful experience, and I didn't know hardly anything about it. And I didn't think it would become a path, but it did. And it has been, I mean, I've been to with these particular shamans at least 100 ceremonies. It sounds like a lot, but over 16 years. And when I went to Peru, I didn't go there for ayahuasca like a lot of people did. I just wanted to go to Peru, and I wanted to take away like a 6 month sabbatical, and I actually looked at, it's called like willing workers on organic farms, and I was just going to volunteer on a farm, and I found a center that seemed really interesting, and it said, we're not taking volunteers anymore. We have an artist residency program if you want to apply, if you're, a musician or a painter or in the arts or a writer. And I said, well, hey, I thought to myself, I've written the one book on India. It would be great to maybe learn about more of the plants of the Amazon jungle. It sounded so exotic and so different. And so I applied, and I thought, well, if I get in, it means I'm meant to go. And so I did. And I put all my things in storage, and I said, I'm going to go and embark on this journey. And it was very wonderful, but also very difficult, challenging. I had a near death experience there, and it
Wow.
was, life changing. And I did write about it when I was there, because I was, 3 months I was in the jungle, and then like the other 3 months I was in the Andes Mountains. And I started writing a short novel called Amo Amazonia, which I love the Amazon. And it was about the retreat, or the writer's residency, and all these cool people that I met. But then I kind of put that aside, because when I came back, I opened up my little boutique yoga massage studio in South Florida. And then I didn't have time to, work on a story, but I felt compelled that I had to write this book. Honestly, I didn't really want to. I wanted to focus on rebuilding my life and making money and doing these things, but I felt compelled. It was like my spiritual mission. I had to write the book, and it did. It took 3 years. And then in the meantime, over 7 years. So after the near death experience was when I started getting these messages, not when I was taking the ayahuasca, but just while meditating. So I had journals. I had a lot of journals, and it took a long time to transpose the journals, to not have my personal things in there, because no one cares about that, but these universal messages that I felt like the medicine. And that's where the book came, the title, Messages from the Medicine. And I felt like that's what I had to put out there. But I had to write my personal story, because no one's going to care, because they're like, oh, who is this person saying they're getting these messages? So I had to put the backstory. And I think so half the book is that, and then the other half is what happened after the near death experience and coming back to Florida, and then all the things that occurred, with the biggest message at the end of the book, which is what I believe as a spiritual person, what we have to embody and guard against, of some of the things that are coming down coming into our society right now, and things that we have to become aware of.
So, tell us a little bit about what happened exactly, like your near-death experience. That can be transformative by itself.
Yeah, it was. I went to a yoga retreat center that really displayed itself to be one thing online. It looked very beautiful, and the teacher seemed really lovely. We emailed each other, and I paid the money, and I went there, and it really wasn't like what it seemed. We were really like kind of in a remote area that wasn't a very good area. Like, you couldn't walk around the neighborhood. It was kind of a dangerous area, I guess. And the
Was that in
center,
Peru?
yeah, and
Oh,
the center did not have any heat in the middle of winter in the Andes Mountains.
wow.
And so that was difficult. The people running it were like, oh, you're going to get to experience, this discipline. So we basically hardly had any food, and it ended up being quite the adventure story. But what happened was, I'd already been in Peru 3 months, and I mean, I was naive to not think that I would get altitude sickness, because I was in the high jungle, but I was in North Peru. So, with that, the South is really in the wintertime, it's winter time, when in the, here it would be summer. So when I went there, I didn't realize how freezing cold it was, and that it was winter time. And I didn't even think about getting altitude sickness, because I'd been in the mountains of South India and in Colorado, and I'd never had altitude sickness. So it started as altitude sickness, and then severe like asthma developed. And these yoga teachers, I mean, just they gave me green juice and just made me get up and do yoga. And basically, that's what happened, is that and it was freezing cold, that my airways just constricted in my lungs, and I couldn't take a breath. And but I survived. I
Oh,
survived to tell the
fantastic.
story. Yeah.
Good to have you back. So,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about some of your journeys, and you know, I'm sure there were some that were more profound than others. Do you have anything that comes to mind that can like be a nice shocker?
Yes. So the first time I did the ayahuasca, because that was a very pleasant, beautiful experience, and I wrote about it. I was writing a magazine column for a number of years, maybe 7 years, for the massage industry. And I wrote about it, but they wouldn't publish it. It's the only thing that they wouldn't publish. They said, "Oh, we don't want to condone, massage therapists trying ayahuasca." And I said, "Well, my book isn't prescriptive at all. Now you should do this or you shouldn't do this." And I was just sharing like an experience. And then I said, well, the Atlantic magazine, a literary magazine, just had an article about ayahuasca, but they didn't care about that. They didn't want me to publish it. So I just put that aside, and I didn't write anything for 6 years. I did a lot of ceremonies. I had a lot of personal growth. And it was actually like a long honeymoon period with me and the medicine, where it was mostly gentle and I was learning and I was growing. But then Peru was a big initiation. So when I went to Peru, um, and I was working with different shamans that were not really anything like the shamans that I had experienced, here in the States and in Miami. So my first one in the jungle, well, I talk about in the book two different real profound ceremonies in the jungle. And the first one just was, it's difficult. It's difficult being there. You're getting eaten by mosquitoes. There's not really a bathroom. It's kind of really scary. You're in the middle of the jungle and you just have to go outside and like in a hole. And it was difficult for sure. But then the second time I went back, and I didn't really want to, but that fear of missing out, that I'm with the whole group of artists and I'm like, okay, this one's going to be good. And I wasn't afraid because I was, more accustomed to the jungle. I knew what to expect. But I left my body and I went into what I believe was actually like a black hole. And I couldn't get back in my body. So that was kind of more of an ego death. So one, I had a physical near death, and this was an ego death. But I was very frightened, like that I couldn't get back inside my body. And while I was there, and I write about that, um, there was no presence of evil or anything. It was just this void. And years later, I saw the movie Gravity with Sandra Bullock, and how she was lost in this, space, and she was like in this dark. And that's kind of what it felt like. It felt like being away in space. But there are these songs the shamans sing, and one of the songs brought me back into my body. And that's what happens, because when you're working, with the astral realm, that your spirit can, or consciousness can go in these different realms. So it seemed like I was gone a long time, and like that there was nothing else except for my own consciousness, that my whole life or the whole planet or everything, like I made it all up. I know that sounds, it's almost hard to describe, but when I came back in my body, I was like the happiest I'd ever been, like in my life. And it gave me a newfound appreciation for being a human, being on this planet. I think in the past I had thought, oh, life can be so hard. And, I'm an empath and I felt so bad for the human condition. And look what we've done to the planet. And almost like there's a better place to go. Like, let's say if you're in Christianity, it's heaven, or, there's this place where people have near death experiences and they go to the light and they go to all this beauty and they don't want to come back to the earth. But I was so happy to come back to the earth, and I was so happy to be me, even with all my flaws or perceived weaknesses. I was like, I'm me again. I had me back again, and I'm on the earth. And I had such a love and appreciation for being a human being, and for this planet. So that was actually turned out to be a very important lesson in gratitude and loving the planet, and being happy to be here.
That's amazing. So, my question, don't they kind of guide you through the journey?
Well, yeah, that's the idea, to be guided through the journey. And they say that the medicine gives you the experience you need. It doesn't give you the experience you want. And apparently, I needed that in some way. But it had never happened before or since then. But that was a um very profound experience.
That's interesting because I mean, I've had one or two uh like in sort of in and out of dream state, and I always feel there's like a cord that's connected to this body that I can always come back to. So that's why I was
Mm.
saying, is there,
Oh,
so that you
yeah.
don't get lost in the
Yeah,
ethers.
I was untethered. But I came back. Now, what's interesting in the story that there is a man in the story, and he was he's a pivotal part of the story. So he was running the art center at the time, and he was, took us all to this particular shaman that really, it's not a resort. It's just he works with local people. So he took us there, and he was the one that was singing the song that brought me back into my
Ah,
body. So I felt this overwhelming love and connection. And at one point, I was like, I would just do anything for this man. I mean, I would loan him money. I would, do whatever I could do for him. And then what happened is that day we came back after the ceremony, he got in a motorcycle accident, and I ended up nursing him back to health for like the next 6 weeks. So we
oh my
had a really
goodness.
strong bond that happened after that. So it was almost, I mean, very, very karmic of how that all happened. That I felt this unconditional love for him for bringing me back. And then, I helped him out tremendously. And we both had a very, uh, you know, beneficial, we helped each other very much.
So does he still live in Peru? Are you in
Yeah.
touch with him?
Yeah.
Oh,
He's a Peruvian. I mean, I haven't talked to him for a little while, but I had told him about the book, and he was happy about the book coming out, but he's not really like on social media or anything like that. And but we were stayed connected for a very long time, because that took place, and I ended up going back to Peru. I don't write about that. This was just about the first journey, but I have been back there again. um
well,
so that,
I
yeah.
quickly went through your book. Was that Ray?
Yeah, it
Was
was Ray.
it
That
okay?
was Ray.
That was Ray. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And what was the other profound experience that you had?
When I was in the Andes, I did, um, with the Sacred Valley tribe, do the ayahuasca again, which was a different experience because it's in this gorgeous temple that seats like 100 people. And when I have done the medicine with I call them my shamans here in Florida, we meet with small groups, and it's in a very small protected environment. Well, this is a group of like 100 people, but they have a skylight where you can look at the moon, and they do these full moon ceremonies, and you're nestled between these just gigantic mountains, and the setting was really incredible. And it's also very nice that you have beautiful, bathrooms and running water and nice blankets, and no mosquitoes, and it's a very nice setting. But when you do the medicine with that many people, that's also very challenging, because when people are experiencing their traumas, or they're crying and they're purging, and it's a very intense energy to hold on to. But
Mm.
when I did the ceremony with that, at one point I had, like, this had never happened, but I had, like, I guess you'd say, like, amnesia. And I was conscious, but I'm like, my name was erased, my whole background was erased, my personality was erased, and I didn't know who I was. And I thought, like, wow, who am I without my story? And then I asked the medicine, because they always say, oh, you can, ask. And I said, who am I? And the medicine said, who do you want to be? Who do I want to be? And I said, like, and this is all going on kind of like telepathically. I'm not really, talking. And I said, I want to be love personified. And right after, like, I said that, I'm like, what does that mean? So that took a long time to unpack. What does that mean? Love personified. And I thought it was interesting, because I think that helped me maybe not attach so much to my story. Like, this is my story, this time, this is like my earthly costume I'm wearing, but we're souls on a very long journey. This is the costume, Katie Haley, this is who I am this lifetime, but this is just one little portion of who I am. So when my identity got erased, it was so confusing, but yet it was kind of liberating. Like, wow, who am I? Well, who do you want to be? So maybe we can ask ourselves that all the time. Like, if we could get rid of our story. And I think in healing, that's a big obstacle for people healing because we're so attached to the story. And it helped me understand that you can still be conscious and alive and breathing and completely not have a story. I mean, my story and my personality came back, but
Wow.
I was a little bit altered maybe after I came back from that.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Interesting. It it kind of reminds me a little bit, but very different. I do energy clearing as well. So, um, what I do is kind of connect source center up and basically bring higher self, whether it's a higher self or higher selves, and ground yourself into source core of earth. And that way, anyway, for me, it's very clear because God is love and we are, source embodiment. Of course, maybe minute parts being in our 3D. But yeah, that's interesting. What I wanted to ask you, because I'm also a Vedic astrologer, and I know that uh, Ayurveda and Vedic astrology are kind of very intertwined. And I'm interested to know that you didn't study Vedic astrology.
No, I love astrology, and that's why I was so connected with you. And when I watched many of your other episodes, I just was like, oh, wow, she's so good. She really knows what she's talking about. Because I've
Thank
had so many readings, and I really do work to go in a harmonious direction with what I feel like the planets are going. I feel like that's really important. And I love astrology, but that's like a whole other, I was focused on more or less, the body work and like the nutrition and things like that when I was over there, because it's so huge. And, what could, and the plants and cooking. So that was like the one part of, Ayurveda with, being a therapist, but like the Vedic astrology, that's just some whole other realm that, yeah, I never really
you.
touched on, or, so many things with the gems or, the art of placement, right, vastu, and learning all that. I mean, so many things. I mean, I could probably stay over there and take up the rest of my lifetime to learn all of those
Oh
things
yeah,
because
I
I'm
mean,
fascinated.
yeah, I mean, you are definitely forever learning with Vedic astrology. There's always there's so much. It's vast, huge. Um, well, it was interesting because I looked at your chart because usually what I do is I always check, the people that I want to interview, their charts and see because there's always a reason that, we come
Oh.
together. And you, like myself, have a Virgo rising. And then I saw that you have Venus in Scorpio, which I do. Um, I have Venus and North Node in Scorpio. You only have Venus, but we both have Venus in our third house, which is very interesting. And third house is the house of courage, but also initiative.
Oh.
And yeah, and so that's really, really interesting. And since Scorpio is the ruler of the eighth house, because, if you go from Aries, it's the eighth house. Therefore, eighth house deals with esoteric knowledge, ayahuasca, Ayurveda, all these different things. And it's also, rebirth, phoenix rising from
Mm.
ashes. And that's why I was asking you about your childhood because it's interesting because yoga is an integral, I mean, I do Kundalini yoga. It's an integral part of my life. I have to do it at least 3 times a week. And I always say, people tell me, oh my God, you're so calm. And I'm like, well, you don't know what goes on inside because I need to do that to be calm and I need to meditate to be calm. But yeah, that's very interesting. And that's why I was asking, about your childhood, because having Venus in such a sign, it's very intense because you feel intensely, you love intensely, you go in depth intensely as far as, what you want to learn, what you want to, you go deep, deep, deep.
Yeah.
And then, you rise from the ashes. So that's what I found really, really interesting.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, this book definitely sees me going deep and rising from the ashes of certain things that happen, and I hope people see within the book, it's the archetype of the, not just the wounded healer, but the journey, the hero's journey, the heroine's journey, that you get the call, but you have the call to adventure, and we all do, and you have to answer that call. Are you going to say yes? And then you have to have the courage to go on the journey, and you meet helpers, right? And then you have obstacles to overcome, but then the end is to bring back the elixir to your community, which what I
Right.
feel like everything has, went full circle.
Careful.
But talking about the Kundalini and the message, when I had a Kundalini awakening, and I think it started when I did the 10-day Vipassana silent meditation, and that's when it started. And then during an ayahuasca ceremony, my Kundalini woke up, and it was incredible. I mean, it was like a one-time occurrence. I mean, when it awakens, at least I believe that it was. And what happened was I had these like waves of like full body orgasms for 5 hours, which was incredible. I mean, how can you even describe that? But what happened was, um, then the vision that was revealed, because that was when I had got to do like a 2 night in a row. And I remember at first the Kundalini, I was doing this, you have these mudras that the body will make, and I was doing these mudras, and it was like I became a plant. And you see those stop motion, with the plants growing, and that happened. And then the next night, I had a vision, and I saw humanity split into two types of people. And think
Mm.
I was never really into sci-fi or any of that, and I thought I was seeing way into the future, but it was that the Earth people and then these like cyber humans. And so over the course of 10 years, and it's come my way to learn about transhumanism and about what's happening. And now we're seeing this happen. So I don't think there's an accident that my book is coming out just when all these things are occurring on a big level, and that the United States now, wants to be number one in the AI technology. And I want to say, I'm not against technology. I mean, technology has helped enhance our lives in many ways, but we live in the duality, and in a it has a potential for very negative way. And I think that's if we give up our humanity and we merge with the technology, meaning merge in a major way where we're not going to be human anymore. And that's the main message of the book. So
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
pretty sure that's not going to happen. The thing is that this is really a spiritual war right now. And like I said, the reason that we're here, we all have certain missions, and humanity has won. The thing is that there's still lots of noise out there, and I would basically invite whoever is interested to go and research for themselves, because all the stuff that we hear in the news, that's not really what is happening. That is the agenda,
mm-hmm,
but they are not going to be successful. And like anything else, AI can be used for positive or negative.
right.
So, if one, and like you said, sci-fi, but if you go back and research, you know, uh, planet Earth, and, you know, this is a long conversation, but to go back, the history that we've been fed on is not true. Um, I actually am also involved in what is called Keylontic science. And I, like I said, it's always interesting because it's like they say, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. And one night, I think it was 2008. I was sitting in New York City in my apartment, and suddenly something popped up on YouTube, and I started watching it at uh, 9:30, and it ends because there were three different interviews, and it
Mhm.
ended at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I went through it, and a lot of the information. And her name is, we call her Iesha. Her name is, she was known as Ashiana Dean. And, a lot of what she talked about was above my head, but it resonated in my heart because she was talking about spirituality and quantum physics and how they're together and, all these different things and symbols and numbers and, you know, uh, and that started me. So anyway, and what she does, she talks about that she's a secretary for these 15th dimensional beings
Mhm.
that are kind of aiding us. And some of us who are in the work and, who are being um, reborn again are higher beings that are being born right now to help with the changes that humanity is going through because we have lost 7 times and this time we've won.
Ooh,
So
that's
yes,
good
so
news.
yes,
That
very,
that
very
is
interesting.
that is good news. Well, I believe from the people that I met, particularly in Peru, and people that are searching, a lot of young people searching for a sense of spirituality, and with the ayahuasca coming out of, the Amazon and being a direct, spirit of Mother Nature herself, and the fact that some of the technology that's happening and uh almost an assault on nature, and we see it even where I live. I used to be surrounded by, there was forests here, and nature being cut down, and nature is the cure. And so when nature is gone, there will we need nature to be organic, human beings. So if the technology that's trying to give people fake food, give people fake um, injections to change their DNA, things like that. I just read, well, I'm not finished with it, but Greg Braden's book on Pure Humans, saying that, human beings will, when to make a choice, are they going to go in that direction, or do they want to stay more connected to nature? And some people don't. Some people want to go into a cyber type reality, whether it's implanting something in their brain or whatever, but that the medicine was like that people have to make a choice, or the choice will, be made for them if they're not going to decide what, uh where they want to go. And some people that aren't spiritually inclined, it's not going to matter. Some people do want to live forever or use artificial means to live forever, but I'm not one of those people.
Right. And what I have to add, and that might create some question marks, there are people who look like human beings who are on Earth who are not human beings.
Oh, I
So
believe that
like you
totally.
said in
Totally.
in your journey that you saw humanity in two different groups, there are two different groups. And there are those that have a contract with the dark, and there are those
Oh,
that have come here to help humanity. So, and
yeah.
Source has created both. So eventually we all go back to Source and they will go back to Source, but it's like, which path do you take? You know? But
Yeah.
I find it really interesting, as far as, like I said, with your birthday, with your chart, my chart. Interestingly enough, about I think 6 years ago, I also published a book. It's called Mom on June's Secret Potion, and it's all my grandmother's herbal remedies. And
Oh,
it
I want to
also
check
took
that
me,
out.
yeah, it also took me 3.5 years to put it together because I'm an esthetician and I work with a lot of people, and people were constantly coming to me saying, oh, I don't want to go to the doctors, what natural stuff? And I thought, this would be an amazing legacy in her name, but also a service to people
Oh,
because
I love
they
that.
can find out. Yeah. So we have some interesting, um, what would you call it?
Yeah, synchronicities. Well, yeah,
Synchronicities.
and me, being an esthetician, and that's how I got into the aromatherapy. I had just become an esthetician, and my sister got me a book with a little kit of oils, and I was, playing with them and, making things that didn't smell that good, but I was having fun, and then it just propelled me to keep learning. So it was aesthetics that was really that entryway a lot into the plants and looking at ingredients and learning, and that was really instrumental to me too. So we have in our chart
Very
with like
very interesting.
beauty and
Yeah.
um, things like that, beauty of nature and
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. So, I know we can talk for hours. Any golden nuggets that you would like to share? So, so you're publishing your book. Is it with a publishing company? Is it going to be on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles? Where is it? Do you have a specific website? Please share all those.
Oh, thank you. So, my first book was a woman-owned small publishing company, but this time I wanted to publish it myself. It was a great learning process but I hired really good, people to help me with, the editing and the design and the whole thing, and all the proceeds go to my nonprofit garden.
Fantastic.
And I do, feel strongly about that everybody can at least, well, not, I'm going to say everybody, but many people, especially if you have, a house, or even when I lived in an apartment, I lived in a high rise in South Florida for 10 years, and I belonged to the community garden, and that we need to start supporting farmers and not just getting things at the big box stores, but go to farmers markets. If you can't grow something, then, hopefully you're going to support someone who is growing things. So I have an urban garden where I teach people how to start, growing things in their own backyard. I've planted 50. I only have like a quarter of an acre here, which there's a house on this. I'm sitting in my little cottage, my little garden cottage, and I've planted 50 fruit trees and probably, blueberry bushes and all these medicinal plants. Probably I've got probably 50 different species, and
Wow.
learning how to do that because I wanted to have fresh food, and I wanted to be, because the gardening is not just the food, but it's all the process of being connected to the cycles of nature, and learning and really communicating with the plants and communicating with the garden. So things that I read, there's the art and the science of it, right? The science, the pH of the soil and amending the soil and all these things, but then the art of um, energetic component to looking at the plants and communicating what do they need, how are you going to grow. And I've seen exponential growth of, I can't believe just 4 years later that the food forest is as bountiful as it is, and I want to share that with others and encourage people to try to grow some of their own food and medicine, and be part of that movement until, because if we don't, then there's going to be the whole corporatization of the food system. One of my idol, I want to say idol, but um, person that I look up to is Vandana Shiva, Dr. Vandana Shiva, who's written many books, and she lives in India, and she pretty much single-handedly kicked Monsanto out of, with her work, out of India. So she
Yeah.
has a huge seed bank, and she's someone I really look up to be vocal about what's going on with the food system, and I write about her in my book as well. So I think that's really important. So that would be my nugget, is support your local farmers, try to grow some of your own food, and just be on that healthy journey, because our body's a temple, and if we don't do it, then it's going to be out of our control, and you're not, we'll lose that privilege of being able to grow our own food and be connected to the land.
Yes, and I think that goes in every possible way that we each have to take responsibility and do what we can for
Mm-hmm.
our community because down the line, that's what will, keep everyone. We have to kind of separate. Um,
Yeah.
One of the things that I wanted you, because I know ayahuasca has become very fashionable. It was very interesting because I go to this. I'm going through special detox right now, and I go to this clinic that's called they have the Zizan machine, which is it gives frequency. It's like a big frame like a TV, but it has
Oh.
copper coils that goes through it,
Hmm.
and it emanates and it heals. Anyway, so I was there, and the owner, who's a good friend, the name of the place is Opt for Light. She was saying that her husband and her were going with another friend up to, I think, was it Miami or Tampa? I'm not quite sure, to do an ayahuasca journey. And so what I wanted to ask you was to basically share how important it is to use the proper, have a, I don't know whether you call it proper or, a experienced shaman that could guide, because I've heard also other stories that were not so, um, you know, nice, so to speak.
Yeah, it's true. The there's just so many people out there. Either they think that they're a shaman, or they're trying to profit in some way that they really don't know what they're doing. And I it's really underground because it's not legal in America. So you really have to find someone who knows someone, and then use your own intuition, because the medicine is definitely not for everybody. If you're taking antidepressants, if you're someone who's a little bit emotionally unstable, or it's for healing, but it can also be very disorienting. And if you're with someone who's not protecting the astral space, like you said about someone who the shaman is supposed to be the one giving you the journey, it can be not good. The introduction to my book is a shaman that wrote this, and just saying, and like you even said about AI, things can be used for good or bad. So you can take that medicine, and it can become a very positive part of your life, or not. And definitely not everyone should take it. People should just do their research and check with other people that have had an experience with that shaman, and find out what is the credentials, because there should be a lineage, like the South American shaman I work with. There's this whole lineage that goes on, just like with yoga lineage. And just because
Right.
someone has the medicine doesn't mean they're qualified to distribute it and hold that space for other people to do their healing work.
Right, 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 right. Well, thank you so much. Well, like I said, it's a great pleasure. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
joining me.
Namaste.
Absolutely. And we can talk for hours, but hopefully maybe later on, maybe in 6 months we can do part two.
Oh, I really appreciate it, and really insightful questions. And thank you very much for having
Oh, my
me.
pleasure. Thank you for coming to Coffee with the Kingpins.
All right. Thank you.
Fantastic. Absolutely.